What is going on, everyone? This is Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. And here on today's episode, we're going to recap the NBA Finals, talk about the Milwaukee Bucks who won the championship, talk about what the Phoenix Suns' future holds. They have some key decisions to make. And after that, we're going to do a NBA mock draft lottery edition. So we're going to do a mock draft with the crew of the lottery for the first round. The draft is going to be on my birthday this year, so I'm excited for that. And now let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What's going on, guys? Eric, your ranting co-host here. I'm especially excited for the mock draft tonight. I like the way the guys got it set up. So we're each going to get to pick for our favorite teams. While that's exciting to do, obviously we're hopeful, they won't be in the spot again, anytime in the future. We don't like our teams being in the lottery, obviously, but it'll be fun to pick for him and to see how the draft actually goes in real life. So yeah, I'm ready to do this thing.
And what is going on, guys? It is Connor, the co-host with the most. And just like Eric, I'm excited for the mock draft. I wish the Hornets honestly weren't drafting in the lottery, or if they were, I wish they were a little bit higher. We're kind of in that crappy position where it's like we weren't good enough to make the playoffs, but we weren't bad enough to get a good draft pick. So not good there, but I'm excited for it. And, I'm also super excited for my client on winning not just the NBA Finals, but the Finals MVP award. So, I'm going to have to use that as motivation to get a higher salary from him in the future because, he definitely has me to thank for part of it.
You stuck with him. Obviously, Giannis's agent is going to always want to be Giannis's agent. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, so let's talk about the NBA Finals, and we were kind of talking before this recording started how Game 6 was last week, and it feels like such a long time ago because all of us have been kind of watching the Olympics a fair amount of Olympics.
I've been watching it nonstop. Honestly.
Yeah, Connor's been watching it nonstop. I've been like at nights every now and then watching here and there. Same, I think, with Eric, but yeah, there's Olympic basketball going on right now. Like some of the players from the finals are joining the team. So that's kind of weird that they just ended the finals and now they're going to play on the same team in Tokyo. And you've got all these things going on. NFL news now starting to get up with training camps and stuff starting. And it's like the finals were a week ago. They already had their parade. Everybody's like focused on the draft. But like last week when we recorded, we didn't know who the NBA champion was. So we just kind of want to talk about that here for a bit. Obviously, the Bucks won 105-98. It was a close game going into the fourth quarter, but the Bucks they took like a 6-point lead and never really it never really got close after that. It would be Milwaukee would score, Phoenix would score, like the lead would fluctuate a little bit, but then eventually it got to that point and Phoenix missed a couple of shots, and then we all knew that the Bucks had won the championship. And the thing that stood out the most to me in this game, obviously, Giannis had the best game of the playoffs for him, and so it was everything that needed for the Bucks to win. They got it. A huge game from Giannis, and really, just what stood out to me the most was how good of a free throw shooter Giannis was in that game, because with the final score being the way it was, Giannis with his normal free throw percentage, I think they would have lost the game. He was something like 21 of 22 or something. I don't know what exactly it was, but it was pretty crazy. It was honestly like a Steph Curry or Damian Lillard percentage. And it goes back to what I think Connor had said last week about how much better he seemed to be doing at home shooting than on the road. So that home court advantage there played a big role. Didn't have as many people counting down from 10 very fast like they did in Phoenix and everywhere else. Like it speeds up every time I see it. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like,
it was pretty pedestrian to start, like actually like a normal count, and now they're just like, oh.
Yeah, so they've gotten fans have definitely run with it, but to me, that was the most impressive thing about the game. That's what won the game, in my opinion, for the Bucks. But I'll ask Connor, do you agree with me? How do you rate Giannis's performance? Like, did you feel disappointed by the Suns at all, or were you just more like impressed overall with Giannis and the Bucks?
Honestly, I think it probably just does come down to like, I think the Suns played as well as they could. I know there was definitely a couple moments there at the end of the game where, like Devin Booker missed a couple of like threes he shouldn't have, and then like Chris Paul missed a three that he probably shouldn't have. So the Suns definitely like didn't make a couple shots of the show. I think Devin Booker was like 0 of 7 from 3 in the game, so he didn't have the greatest game. But Chris Paul had a really good game. Um, the rest of the team, like Ayton did all he could. Bridges, honestly, Frank Kaminsky actually is the one I wanted to mention. He had a pretty good game coming off the bench for them because Ayton again got into foul trouble. So, Kaminsky had to play some more minutes than usual. But really, it was just they just got beat by Giannis. Like, you see the final score, and it was just crazy to see. I mean, I don't think it's anything short to say that he had a legendary performance. I mean, 50 point, only like the 7th person in NBA history to score 50 points in the finals. I think they also said he was like the first player since like 1974 in the finals to have like 50 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 blocks or something like that. So, that was got to come up with those random stats. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the official stat was 17 of 19 on his free throws. I mean, who would have thought that? I mean, even when he was shooting at home, maybe he had some games where he was like 7 of 8 or 8 of 9, but 19 free throws and only to miss 2 of them. I mean, I don't think anyone would have guessed that he would have been able to keep it up the whole game. I mean, I guess, once you get in that zone, you get in that zone. But, for Giannis to be able to do that, um, and like you said, knock down those clutch shots, it just really kind of cemented his legacy in some way. I mean, and also, given the fact that he's only 26 years old, obviously this isn't the end for Giannis. We'd be having a very different story if the Suns had won. We'd be talking about Chris Paul, like, this kind of like puts the cherry on his career, Chris Paul's going to finally go out with an NBA championship. Like, this is honestly just the beginning for Giannis. Like, he still has a lot of good years in front of him. He still has Chris Middleton by his side. I know Budenholzer was really quick to acknowledge both of them, when they got to the end, because obviously, he wanted to acknowledge Giannis and praise Giannis, but he also didn't fail to mention Middleton was a big part of this run, even though, he didn't have the most star-studded game in Game 6, but obviously Giannis was stealing the show. So, fantastic performance for the Bucks. Definitely something to look forward to. I think, honestly, maybe something that I think I talked about this in the past, but maybe something that helped them this year was maybe not having all that pressure of being the number 1 seed. Being like the one that was expected to win it all. Because obviously, coming into this playoffs, I mean, we all saw it with all of our predictions. We all had them, obviously, I don't think anyone really picked them to lose to the Heat. The Heat just definitely weren't the same team, but, we all had them losing to Brooklyn in the second round. Or, if there was anybody out there who maybe thought that they were going to beat Brooklyn, they probably had them losing to Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference Finals. So no one really gave them a chance this year. I mean, myself included as Giannis's agent. And, I think I said last year, I was like, if they don't win this year, I'm never picking them again. But, maybe that, like I said, that was a kick in the pants for them, coming out here, not having the expectation, not being the favorite like they have been the past 2 years. And, Giannis really stepped up, Middleton really stepped up, and it'll be interesting to see where this team goes going forward. I mean, they're going to be keeping a lot of the same pieces next season. I mean, the only one they're really losing is PJ Tucker, but he's not really that important on the list of important players on this team. So, just really excited for Giannis, and I'm excited to see what the Bucks can do in the future, because I know they're definitely not done.
Yeah, and Eric, I'll ask you kind of like a different question about the Bucks. Kind of a more like a looking forward question.
Okay.
In your opinion, would you have the Bucks as the favorites to win next season's championship right now, or would you go with another team?
As of right now, I don't, only because I do think the Nets are going to get fully healthy, and obviously with the talent they have on that team, they're always going to be a threat. But I'm also going to have the Bucks a lot higher than what I would have had, because I don't believe in Philly anymore.
Yeah.
At least as
I
long
never
as
started.
at least as long as Ben Simmons is on their team and Doc Rivers is their coach. I mean, I don't believe in them. My boy Joseph, I'm sure who's a Sixers fan, I'm sure he agrees with me. But and then a couple other teams that I'd hire, like I don't know what's going to go on with the Clippers situation with this whole Kawhi thing. Like they're going to be like probably lower in my rankings, and I'm kind of getting to where I don't know if I'm going to be a believer in the Suns anymore either. Because we all know how fortunate they were to get to this point with all of the injuries that a lot of the other teams had. I don't think they would have got this far. And so I was a little disappointed in the Suns, but so I don't necessarily think I'm going to have the Bucks as a favorite to repeat right now, but I do have them way higher up on my list than I would have had if they had lost to the Nets in the second round or something like that. They're much higher.
Well, I will say to that point, I actually, in my opinion, I kind of agree with like the Vegas odds makers right now, because they always like to release the odds, right after the final. So I mean, I kind of agreed with them that like the Nets are the favorites, obviously, because they only played one. They didn't play any games against the Bucks with their full big three healthy. So I think it'd be honestly a crime to not have the Nets as favorites. Obviously we don't know what they're going to look like. Who knows what's going to happen next year, but just on paper, the Nets should be the favorites. And then they had the Lakers as the second favorite, which, if Anthony Davis can get healthy again, then I could again see that happening, because, him going down really killed their run when we thought they had more to do. So, and man, who knows, maybe they'll make some better moves, but they had the Bucks at number 3. So I was like, okay, that seems kind of fair to me. Like, I don't think you can put them above the Nets. I think they're kind of on the same level with the Lakers, just given like how bad the supporting cast is. But obviously, you can't count out the duo of LeBron and AD. Like, they're so deadly. So I think the Bucks at like third favorite right now is probably where they should be.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It'll be interesting to see. I would probably put them above the Lakers, honestly, on my rankings, but yeah, it's
for me, it's going to depend on what the Lakers do. Like,
if
they're able to somehow get like a third big, person to be like a big 3 on that team or something,
or even just get a slightly better supporting cast.
Yeah, or which really, see, that's the problem. Everybody always says like, oh, the Lakers need to get another superstar for LeBron. It's like, no, they need more depth. Like, that's the problem, because we saw what happened when LeBron and AD were both hurt. The rest of the team just couldn't do it. Even when one of them was healthy and the other one was hurt, they couldn't do it. So it's like they need better depth is what they need. They don't need to get another superstar. They need to get more depth.
Yeah.
But yeah, but if the Lakers are able to make some big move or something, then I would put them at number 2. But then if the Bucks, like if they don't, and they kind of, it's like they both have pretty similar teams what they had, I'm with Zach. I'd give the Bucks the edge at number 2. But anyway.
Yeah. So let's, guys, transition over and talk about the Suns, the losing team, kind of like we have throughout all the playoffs. Talk about the losing team and what they need to do to get to the championship and win it. And so now, guys, we're all gonna put our GM hats on and make some tough decisions surrounding the Suns. And really, it's mainly about Chris Paul, because what he has right now is a $44 million player option. I know. I know
that's deadly.
For most people, if you had a $44 million employment option, you would take that. But obviously, basketball
I'm turning
is
that down.
I could get 50.
But obviously, in the world of the NBA, contracts are ridiculous. So, $44 million player option, and something like we had all considered this really like before he played for OKC, before that OKC season. We were all like, everybody was like, oh man, this is a terrible contract. Like the Rockets, like they way overpaid him. Like this is going to be looked at as one of the biggest like contract wastes ever. And things just happened to work out the last couple of years where in OKC he had a great year, really overperformed with that team, and then got traded to a more contending situation with Phoenix, and they made it to the NBA Finals. They didn't win it, but he had a great season, was their best player at times, without a doubt their leader, the mentor, all that sort of stuff that's, not in the stat sheet. He was the leadership voice for the Suns, which definitely has some value in it. But now he's got to make a decision where he could turn down that $44 million option and give himself something like a 3-year extension for $100 million guaranteed, or something around that range. So another thing to keep in mind is next season in the playoffs, he'll be 37 years old. So, this is an older player who you could be giving a lot of money to, and there's a huge risk in that. So let's all kind of, I don't know if you guys have thought what you want to do with this situation, but let's just go into it assuming CP3 declines the extension. If I was the GM, I'll go first here. I would try him, bring him back, but I would do no more than 2 years, and probably I would have to do like 2 years and give him like the same amount of money he's making now and just like add a year extension to it, because he's too old in my opinion. Like basketball, it's a sport. It's definitely a young man's sport, I think, and he's never been the most athletic person in the world, obviously, but I don't know. Once you get like 37 years old, that's like Carmelo Anthony's age, and you see how he does. Like, I don't know. To me, it's just a big risk to give him a 3-year, $100 million deal. And I think if you're Phoenix, you have to be willing to say be willing to say no to an offer. You just can't accept whatever he wants, And I don't know what CP3 is going to want, if he's willing to do a discount or not, or if he wants to leave and go somewhere else. I don't know what his priorities are, but for the Suns' perspective, I'm not going to cave in and give him whatever he wants, and I'm willing to walk away from the negotiating table without him, just because that having those extra years when he's like 40 years old making 44 million is ridiculous. So I'll go over to Eric next. Eric, you're the GM of the Suns now. Do you treat this differently than me? Are you thinking, screw 3 years down the line, we need to win it next year, like even if it's a bad contract when he's 41 or something? What's your philosophy as the GM for the Suns here?
Yeah, this is really hard. The Suns are definitely in a bind here, but what I personally would do is, let me just throw a different hypothetical out there. In my opinion, if the Suns had won the championship, I would be willing to pretty much give him whatever he wants. I mean, because that obviously Phoenix hasn't, they hadn't even been in this situation in a long time, and they, in my understanding, the Suns haven't won a championship before, right? I don't believe they have.
No, never.
Yeah, so if he had gotten Phoenix their first championship, I mean, that would have been huge. I'd be willing. I mean, I wouldn't give him like 3 years, 40 million or something like that. But if he was like, hey, can I get 3-year, 30 million a year? Like, but you can have it. Like, you got us a championship. I believe you can do it again. But my problem with Chris Paul, besides his age, is just for whatever reason, it just seems like he's able to lead the team to a good season, have some good performances in the playoffs, but then when it really matters, like he seems to disappear for some reason in key games. And I saw this stat the other day, something about his about all these different leads that his teams have had in the playoffs. A lot of them were like 2-0 or 3-1 or whatever, and they ended up blowing the lead and losing the series. And at some point that's got to be on him. It can't be like every time, oh, it was somebody else's fault. Like the only one that wasn't his fault to me was the one where they lost to the Warriors, but that was because he got hurt and didn't play. So I don't blame that on him when he couldn't play. But there's been too many other situations where this has happened, and then it happened yet again in this NBA Finals. And so for me, as good of a leader as he is and as good of a player as he is, the decline is going to happen. And I would rather look to the future. Like I would rather pay DeAndre Ayton. He's still got a lot of room to improve in his game, but getting a good big man is hard to come by. He's young. I'd much rather keep him and see what other pieces we can get. So what I would do is either try to do a sign and trade. Like that would be my first look. Like see if I can maybe get some assets for him. If there's a team that might be in a similar situation as the Suns, where they feel that the Suns were in last year, where they feel like, man, we're one good piece away from a championship. Somebody like that might be willing to give up some draft picks or some other younger assets to sacrifice to try to win a title now. Like I would try to do that. But otherwise, I would be willing to let him walk. I don't want to pay him 3 years and pay him a ton of money. Now, if it's 3 years and only like under 20 million, like 20 million a year or something like that, maybe I'd be willing to do that, but I don't think that's what he's going to want to do. So sign and trade. And then if not, I am willing to let him walk if need be.
All right, Connor as the third GM. Yeah, go ahead, Connor, GM number 3.
Oh man. I mean, honestly, for me, I'd probably be a little bit more in agreement with Zach on this. Because I mean, obviously he's getting older and you obviously don't want to overpay for him, but I would have something that at least try to see if I can get him for like a 2-year deal. Because yeah, I agree that 3 years is too long. Like I'm sure he'll probably still be pretty good next year. But the season after is when I'm really going to start to question, like, is he still going to have the same game or not? So definitely a 2-year deal would be the way to go for me. But then this is kind of where I get back to like agreeing with Eric, I guess, is that if he doesn't want that 2-year deal, like if I can't make something work, like a 2-year deal, maybe like, 40 million a year, or 2-year, 35 million a year, somewhere in that range, like Zach said, like what he's making right now. If he turns that down, then I would let him walk. Like if he is like has his soul set on 3 years, unless like Eric said that he can, if he's willing to take it for maybe like 20 million a year, which I highly doubt.
I don't think he would do that.
Then I would let him walk because I agree that they need to look towards the future. Like Chris Paul, again, how many good years does he have left? At most 2, which is why I would probably offer him that 2-year deal. But if he turns that down, then I'm not as concerned about that anymore, just because I feel like they can really invest their money elsewhere. Like Eric said, pay DeAndre Ayton, maybe see if you can use that extra cap space to, bring someone else in, like, okay, no longer is Chris Paul here. Maybe we can try and bring in a different third piece. I don't know who that third piece would be, but bring in another third piece to go with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, 2 players that are much younger, and start just, the Suns could be something in a few years. And I feel like if they, try and give Chris Paul something like a 3-year deal, it's just going to ruin that future for Ayton and Booker. Especially if they, do that and they start, doing really bad. I mean, who's to say that, at that point, you don't start getting things, hearing all these rumors and stuff about like, Devin Booker wanting to be traded away or something like that, because there could be something like that could happen if they overpay for Chris Paul and then they start sucking. Okay, it's like, do I really want to be part of an organization that, kind of screwed my NBA future, So
yeah,
I don't know.
There had already been rumblings about him wanting to be traded before if they weren't bringing anybody in and kept having like losing seasons, like there had been like before the bubble last year.
Right. So it's just one of those things. Like, you have to be really careful with what you do here. But like I said, I agree with Zach on the 2-year deal thing. But if he turns that down, then goodbye, Chris Paul. You can go find. You're done. Goodbye. Because honestly, he's not going to get that from anyone else. I highly doubt it. Like, it would be in his best move. Like, if the Suns decide to give him like a 2-year, $35-40 million deal, then he should take it, because no one else is going to give him that. Like, everyone else is going to see it as, oh yeah, just another washed up wanting $35 million a year. Like, yeah, that's not happening. Or if it is, then it's going to be some really crappy team with more money than sense. And I'm sure he doesn't want to end his career playing for a bum team. So
no, he's not going to do that.
No.
He's not like Vince Carter.
No,
who he didn't have any problem playing with the Kings and the Hawks. Like,
yeah, I know that. It's like, come on, man, just retire. Like, you need to.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the NBA playoffs for 2020-2021. The playoffs discussion is finally over now, and we will start the first discussion on the next season, which is starting with the draft, first thing up. So let's go ahead and start with our mock draft, guys. And we, like I said at the intro, we are only doing this mock draft for the lottery picks. So 14 picks. Basically, in NFL terms, this is like the first round of the draft, because usually after the lottery, it gets a lot harder to find quality players. Now, this draft class in particular is a deep and strong draft class, so there's chances that there's going to be better players taken at the end of the first round. Maybe in the second round, you can get quality players for your team. But obviously, the first 14 here are the ones that most people are going to have an eye on. So let's start things off and put Connor on the clock with the first pick for the Detroit Pistons. Connor, you're on the clock.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, we talked about this on our NBA draft preview episode that, y'all definitely thought the Detroit Pistons needed this first pick more than anyone else. And I do not see any reason why. I mean, there's been some interesting rumors from what I've heard from Zach about the Pistons' thought on this pick. But if I'm the Detroit Pistons and I'm the GM today, no question in my mind, I'm taking Cade Cunningham from Oklahoma State.
All right, Cade Cunningham going number 1 to the Pistons. And that's a good thing you just said, because I forgot to say that earlier. Like, this is a mock draft of what we would do, not necessarily what we think we'll do. Like, we have our own mock drafts for what we expect to happen, but with these mock draft picks, like we did in the NFL, guys, we might look back a year from now on this and look at these picks. So this is what you would do as the GM. So
who knows?
we
might have been smarter than some of the NFL GMs.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure there definitely will be cases where we were. So I have the number 2 pick now for the Houston Rockets. Been a bad year for Houston sports, I know, but at least they have the Rockets
I don't think any of us are complaining about that.
No, trust me. But at least the Rockets have a draft pick, unlike the Texans did last year. So
they didn't have a pick until like the 3rd round.
No, yeah, they're pretty bad. It's funny though, because the Rockets, they could have lost it to OKC, so then that would have been miserable for Houston to have no first round picks between the Rockets and Texans. But anyways, I digress. With the Rockets pick here at number 2, I am going to take Jalen Suggs the guard from
Ooh.
Gonzaga. To me, I think Suggs is going to end up being the best player in this class. I think he's got elite scoring capability. Obviously, we saw him. He was on a very good team with Gonzaga, no question about it, but he was a highly rated prospect, kind of like Cunningham. It was Cunningham, Suggs. Most people were leaning Cunningham, but to me, when I watch both these players play, I think Suggs has more athleticism, and I think he's going to be the better scorer long term. So I think for what Houston needs, they desperately need scoring. I think Suggs is a good answer for that, and I just have seen him more, and I like him more than the other prospects. So that's going to be my pick, and then that leaves Eric now at pick number 3 with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So Eric, what's this pick going to be?
Just real quick before I make that pick, Zach, I
Yeah.
know you're one of the only people I know that hates Houston sports more than I do. How hard was it for you to make that pick for them?
It was definitely hard. I mean, I'm hoping, I'm crossing my fingers so much that Suggs somehow falls to 5 to Orlando, obviously, because that's my favorite team.
Good
So
luck
I
with
would
that.
love for him. I know, but I'm just saying, or if Orlando can trade up to get to Suggs, then that's then I'll take that too. But yeah, I do not want Suggs to go to Houston. That's for sure.
Gotcha. I just had to throw that in there real quick. Now for Cleveland, obviously I agree with both Connor and Zach's picks. I mean, I think both of those guys are going to be really good, but Cleveland really needs a good big man, and I believe that Evan Mobley is going to be like by far the best big man in the draft. So it's perfect for Cleveland here because they get arguably the best player available, and it fits a position and need at the same time. So can't go wrong with this pick here, in my opinion, for Cleveland.
All right. And now we're back over to Connor picking number 4 for the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting pick for the Raptors. Obviously, in a lot of mock drafts, Jalen Suggs is falling down here, so obviously they wouldn't pass on him. The Raptors do really need a big man, especially with the departures of Marcus Gasol and Serge Ibaka. They don't really have a really good center. I mean, I think their starting center right now is Aaron Baines. It's just pretty bad. But unfortunately for them, there's not really a center at this spot worth taking. So if I'm the Raptors here, I would just have to go with best available, considering they were pretty bad last year, and go with Jalen Green.
All right, Jalen Green to the Raptors. Yeah, so definitely these top 4, I think, is what you'll see on draft night. There could be like trades. Obviously, we don't know if these teams will stay in this order. I think there's a possibility of that, but
yeah,
the 4 names that we've picked are probably likely to go in the top 4.
I will say if Toronto feels like they really don't want Green, I could see OKC moving up to get him if they feel like he's like the best available player.
Yeah.
But, so I could definitely see Toronto trading this pick if Mobley's not there. It would not surprise me one bit.
For sure. And now at number 5, I've got the first Orlando Magic pick in the lottery. This is the pick that they earned, I guess, from the lottery. So with the Magic here, I'm looking at the big board left, and to me, it's tough because the thing with the Magic though is at least like they have needs basically everywhere, so that's not really a problem for them. Is figuring out a specific need. They can take best available, so that's where it gets really tough. But I think I'm gonna have to go with Scotty Barnes here, the forward from Florida State. And what I love about Barnes is I think he's just a great all around player. He takes defense seriously, which I know the Magic usually value in their draft picks. And the thing about him too is he's not as polished of a scorer as some of these other guys. Like he needs work on his jump shot, and he has areas of his game to improve in, but his athleticism is there. A lot of coaches and stuff I hear talk about his leadership, like he's a winner. and there's a lot of other positive things. He's a good. I think he's going to be a good person for the team. There's definitely some other guys later in the draft that I think are going to fall because of maybe they don't want it as much. But to me, I think Scotty Barnes is going to be the best player after these top 4 guys go. So that's who I'm really wanting them to pick. So I wonder if I took the guy Eric wanted, since Eric has OKC's pick next at number 6.
Well, thankfully, for me, you did not. I'm obviously going to admit right now.
No sniping going on right now.
I know the least out of these prospects out of
Yeah.
the 3 of us for sure. So obviously, I have no idea what OKC would really do here. But just looking at from the little bit of research I've done here, a player that I'm kind of excited about. Looking at these top rankings, so I agree with Zach too. After the top 4, it's kind of just fair game. There's not a standout 5th best player necessarily or something like that. So OKC, we have a buttload of needs on this team. We pretty much have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dort and nobody else. So I'm going to take Joshua Giddey. I like what I've read about him, just playing against a lot of older competition. He seems mature for his young age, and he's also versatile. He can be, a guard or a forward or a wing. I mean, he's got a lot of different things he can do, so he can be flexible in the lineup. So while this isn't, since OKC tanked pretty hard, I would have rather us, ended up getting at the top of the draft, but we won some meaningless games for some reason. So seeing as how we're in this position, it's not what I was hoping for, but I will take it.
All right. So Josh Giddey from Australia goes at 6 to OKC. The first international player so far to go, I think. So, Connor, you now have pick number 7 with Golden State. So what do you think you're going to do with this pick?
So this is obviously a very interesting pick just because of the fact that on draft night, this is probably one of the most likely picks that we could see getting traded. There's a lot of talk with Golden State about how, they don't need these picks. They've already got Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and everyone still wants to throw Draymond Green in there for some reason. I don't know why he's not that good anymore, but of course, we got to throw Draymond Green.
What are you talking about, man? He can guard the 1 through the 5.
I know he's been the MVP for Team USA so far on the Olympics. Totally not. Anyway, but yeah. So really, I guess from what I've read, the biggest. I'm not gonna do a trade here just because I haven't researched enough to really figure out who I would really trade with at this spot. So I'm just gonna act like the Warriors are not gonna trade this pick, and they really need some more wing help from what I've read about them. They really need kind of 3-and-D wings on their team. So I'm gonna go with James Bouknight from UConn.
All right, yeah, I've definitely seen him around the spot with Golden State. And now I've got the second pick for Orlando at number 8. So looking at the board here now, like I said with Orlando, I still want to take who I think is best available. And this is tough because you're deciding between guys who I think are very close in their rankings. You can go either way. And I think I'm going to end up going with Davion Mitchell from Baylor. This might seem like a little bit. Actually, you know what? Actually, I'm going to change my pick. I'm going to take Moses Moody, the wing from Arkansas. Whenever I watched Arkansas play, Moody stood out to me. Super fast, super athletic guy. I like his game. He's a player that the Magic really don't have. A real driver in the paint. They have some shooters, and they have some facilitators, but they don't have like a get me the ball and go to the rim type guy. And I think Moody can do that for him. So I like his speed for sure. I like his shooting. He stepped up big for Arkansas when they needed it. He played in the SEC against good competition. Arkansas was a surprise this year because of him. So I really like Moody, and I'd be a big fan if they take him in the draft. And that leaves pick number 9 now to Sacramento, and Eric is going to make that pick.
Yeah, so literally, I mean, obviously these teams are in the lottery, and so most of the time when teams are in the lottery, they have a ton of needs. But this is now going to be the third team in a row I'm drafting for that just kind of has a ton of needs all over the board. So for the Kings, I'm just going to go ahead and scoop up Jonathan Kuminga here. He does seem to be viewed as a little bit more of a prospect than some of the other top guys, but he's only 18 years old. He's got great size, and the Kings aren't necessarily trying to win now. They're going to be rebuilding. So I think it's a good strategy for them to take him, because if they can help him really reach his potential to match his physical gifts, then he could end up being a really good player, down the road for this team. So if I'm the Kings and Kuminga falls this far, I'm going to be pretty happy with that, and I will scoop him up.
All right, so that leaves me now with pick number 10 in Memphis. The Memphis Grizzlies have this pick. I'm going to pick for them. They traded just today for this pick from New Orleans. And so, all right, I think you guys know I'm going to take Davion Mitchell from Baylor. Like, it was close for me between Moody and Mitchell. But I really like Mitchell as well. Obviously, he's a champion because Baylor won the March Madness last season. He was like the MVP of that team. Another guy who plays great defense. He's a better defender than offensive guy, which is fine because they have Ja Morant already. So I think pairing a young backcourt with Ja and Davion Mitchell, I think is a perfect compliment. You see lots of times teams will have two bad defenders out there, point guard, shooting guard pairings. Mitchell can play defense. Yes. Well, Clay can play defense.
Clay plays pretty good, but
Clay's a good defender.
Damon CJ.
Damon CJ. That's the one that I was thinking of. Damon CJ.
So Mitchell, he can play great defense. Like he's a winner. I think Memphis is on the verge of breaking out. I wasn't a big fan of that trade that they did, but still, I think at this spot in the draft, I think Mitchell's the guy that they should take to really bring some defense and grit to that team.
Well, hey, at the end of the day, they still have Karl Anthony Towns on that team. Oh, no, that's the Timberwolves. What am I thinking?
I was going to say.
Am I tripping right now?
No, I don't know why I said Karl Anthony Towns there. I was like thinking in my head like Blue and M, but wrong. Yeah. Blue and M.
All right. Now you're on the Charlotte Hornets. Don't say Charlotte Bobcats.
Trust me, I'm not making that mistake.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm so glad they went back to the Hornets. The logo and the colors are so much better than what they have with the Bobcats.
Yeah.
Those were pretty ugly, that blue and orange crap that they had.
But anyways, you got this pick here, so where do you want to go with this?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping for another winner here because obviously we had a winner last year in LaMelo Ball. So this is definitely a tough pick just because obviously the biggest need for the Hornets by far is big man. I'm not going to be, do what they did the last couple of years and just take guards all the time because, heaven forbid we don't take a guard at some point in the draft, even though that's like our most plethora, most of our talent is in that position and we don't have great forwards or big men. So this is a tough pick because obviously I'm between Alperen Sengun, I hope I pronounced that right, and Kai Jones. Really, what I think would help the Hornets more, because unfortunately I've seen in a lot of mocks, it's kind of back and forth, but I've seen it more so that they're linking Kai Jones with the Hornets. I don't know if that would be the best fit, just because Kai Jones, the way he was used at Texas was more of like a perimeter style big man, but we already have a ton of threats on the perimeter with Rozier and Devontae Graham and some of the other players. PJ Washington's kind of like a stretch four. So really we need more of an inside presence. He has improved his game on the perimeter, has Sengun, but it's obviously still not great, but I don't think that's really as important. And he was the MVP of the Turkish league, which, I think the last big player to do that at his age was some guy named Luka Doncic. So
who the heck is that guy?
So definitely as the Hornets, I hope they don't take Kai Jones because I'm going with Alperen Sengun here. I think he's the better fit for the Hornets at this moment.
All right, Sengun from Turkey, gonna be this pick here, and now Eric is on the board with pick number 12 for the San Antonio Spurs.
All I know is I will say first, Michael Jordan, if you listen to this and you draft Jones and he ends up busting, but Sengun ends up being good, you better fire your GM and bring in this man Connor right here.
Maybe he needs to fire himself.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I had to do the question for Zacho and then now that mention for Connor. But so the Spurs, this is my first team to pick for that. While they do have needs, they're not like where they need everything like a lot of these other teams I've been picking for. So a prospect that I am interested in and that I do feel like could be a good fit for the Spurs is I'm going to go with Franz Wagner from Michigan. He had a pretty good season for them, and he's not necessarily a flashy overall player, but he's like a guy that can get it done. And I feel like a player like that's kind of the type of player that Greg Popovich likes to have on his team. He doesn't want the flashy show it off guys. He wants the guys that are just going to go out there and play and get the job done. And I think he'd be a good fit for the Spurs here.
All right, Connor, you've got the next pick, your last pick in this mock draft with the Indiana Pacers.
Well, definitely a bit interesting because Eric took the guy that I was going to take. So
we got a snipe.
It's really interesting. Because obviously a lot of the players that I have in this mock draft have already been taken to this point. Because in my regular mock, I have Davion Mitchell going here, but obviously Zach already took him with Memphis. So, I think I'm between the two Johnsons right now, but which one do I want to take? Do I want to take Keon Johnson or Jalen Johnson? I'm sure Zach and Eric want me to take Keon Johnson, being that he's from Tennessee. But that being said, I think in terms of from what I've seen as to who would be the better fit for this team, as to what the Pacers need, they seem like they need more forward help. So I'm going to go with someone that plays for my arch rival in basketball, Jalen Johnson, the forward from Duke.
This is on my do not draft list because he quit on Duke once they started losing. So he's on my do not draft list.
I will say kind of a lot of people quit on them. I think Coach K Coach K kind of quit on them too.
Yeah, he did. But he actually just stopped playing for them. He didn't even want to try it once they started losing. So I don't know. It scares me a little bit.
But it does. It's one of those things I can somewhat see where he's coming from. You could you commit to this powerhouse of a college basketball team, and that's what you end up with. But not defending his actions or anything.
Yeah.
But I can see a little bit of where he's coming from there. But who knows? Maybe he'll change his attitude. I know Duke players have attitude problems. If you heard of this one guy named Grayson Allen, so
we know about him. All right, so I've got the last pick here in the lottery for Golden State. Let's see. Earlier, Connor took Bouknight for them. James Bouknight. I just like saying that name. So this is a tough pick here for Golden State, but I think I'm going to go with one of the more interesting players to watch in his career, and I'm going to take Corey Kispert from Gonzaga, another Gonzaga player here. But I really like his game, and he kind of, I think he would fit well. I think he would fit well in Golden State, being primarily like a shooter. You already have Stephen Clay, and then if you throw Kispert out there, obviously most of the defense is going to be focused on Stephen Clay from the perimeter, and then Kispert should get good opportunities. He's not the most athletic. That's obviously his biggest downside is his athleticism, but he's a winner, so I think he would pair well with Golden State. They've had a lot of success on that team with Steph and Clay. I think he's just the kind of good. I think he's a good person to fit on that team. He's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna be a significant player right away for them, but he'll play sparingly big minutes for them and contribute for them. And then eventually, I think he gets a more prominent role with Golden State. So I wanted to pick him just because I think he's going to be a real interesting player career to follow. Is Corey Kispert from Gonzaga. So that's going to round out our 2021 NBA mock draft lottery, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to this. Let us know on Twitter at clutchcrewsport any lottery picks that we didn't make in this mock draft that you think should have gone. And tell us maybe who you want your favorite team to draft on July 29th. So with that being said, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. And until then, remember, be clutch.
Bye.
Peace.